After Hamas's brutal terrorist attack on October 7th, 2023, we've seen a year of bloodshed. Social media brings us daily images of innocent civilians killed as Israel's military obliterates Gaza. Now the conflict has moved into Lebanon, and already so many civilians have been killed. Netanyahu is crossing yet another red line, threatening the Italian, Irish and other nationality peacekeepers stationed in Lebanon. It's a bleak picture. In this episode of Take a Left, the podcast from the Socialists and Democrats group in the European Parliament, we are looking for some rays of hope.
Il Presidente!
Ma cos'è la
Che
sinistra?
significa essere di schierda destra?
The resolution is adopted.
We also spoke to our president, Iratxe Garcia Perez. Iratxe, this week we saw horrific images of people dying in North Gaza. Now we see that Netanyahu is in Lebanon, and he's even targeting Italian and Irish UN peacekeepers. What else has to happen for the international community to concretely act?
Bueno, yo creo que es hora de desplegar todo nuestro poder para hacer que prevalezca el derecho internacional. Y al mismo tiempo debemos exigir al gobierno de Netanyahu que la solución tiene que ser la de los dos estados, porque es la única respuesta para evitar que la tragedia humana continúe. Ni la guerra, ni la ocupación, ni la expulsión puede ser la solución. La única respuesta posible es dos estados que vivan en paz.
You've spoken about an arms embargo. Is that something that we can make happen?
Bueno, lo que debemos hacer, y ya lo hemos planteado en otras ocasiones, es en primer lugar revisar el acuerdo de asociación con Israel, es sancionar a los miembros del gobierno de Netanyahu que están negando la existencia del pueblo palestino y, por supuesto, imponer el embargo de armas para que la Unión Europea no sea cómplice de la sinrazón que está ocurriendo en estos momentos en Gaza.
When Russia invaded Ukraine, we were united in supporting Ukraine, and our support for Ukraine remains steadfast. We saw von der Leyen and others clearly being comfortable talking about the war crimes that Russia was carrying out. What's the difference?
Bueno, es que hemos dicho en muchas ocasiones que no es aceptable los dobles raseros, no son aceptables los dobles estándares. La masacre en Gaza nos juzga al mundo entero, al mundo en su conjunto. Y fuera de nuestras fronteras nos preguntan por qué no utilizamos la misma fortaleza y la misma convicción para defender los derechos humanos y el Estado de Derecho en Ucrania, o defender igualmente los derechos humanos y el Estado de Derecho en Gaza. Por lo tanto, creo que es algo muy claro, es un argumento lleno de razones y que tenemos que insistir, por supuesto, para que así sea.
And Spain has always taken a brave and progressive approach. What can we do to help make sure that other European countries and even the EU itself can go down that road?
Bueno, ha pasado ya un año. Es verdad que hace una semana, unos días, celebrábamos el aniversario del 7 de octubre, y ha pasado un año donde hemos visto que esa unidad a la que se apela desde la Unión Europea no hemos conseguido que sea una realidad en el ámbito del papel de la Unión Europea en el conflicto de Gaza. Y es obligatorio que cada líder responda a la siguiente pregunta: ¿cuántos muertos más tiene que haber en Oriente Medio para parar esta situación? Es el momento de apelar a la humanidad, de apelar a la responsabilidad política de todos los líderes, de los líderes nacionales, de los líderes europeos, para poner fin a esta masacre y a esta tragedia. Por lo tanto, lo que debemos es pedir que se actúe con esa misma intensidad para parar la pérdida de miles de vidas, de niños, de niñas, de inocentes, de mujeres que realmente tenemos en nuestras manos, pero solo lo podemos hacer desde la contundencia y desde la unidad de la Unión Europea.
Thanks so much for your time.
Gracias a vosotros.
We organised a peace conference here in Brussels, inviting progressive actors from across the region. And in this podcast episode, we spoke to an Israeli and a Palestinian working for peace. We're here in Brussels today with a Palestinian and an Israeli working for an end to the bloodshed and a two-state solution. Mossi Raz is a former Knesset member with the Democrats, and Dr. Nasser Al-Kidra is a former foreign minister and ambassador to the UN for Palestine. First thing first, what do we have to do to stop the bloodshed?
In Gaza, we have, of course, to go for what was proposed by President Biden and was incorporated in Security Council Resolution 2735, which means, to be more specific, which means the release of all hostages, the release of the agreed upon number of Palestinian prisoners from Israeli prisons. Of course, before that or with that, there should be a ceasefire. Then there should be an Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. There should be also a construction or the construction of a Palestinian governmental structure that would be able to rebuild Gaza and to deal with the security matters, maybe with the help of an Arab security presence or an international force, whatever we agree upon. Something like that would be the beginning. But for this to happen, for the Arabs to come in, there should be two things, two requirements, two political requirements. One, Israeli commitment to withdrawal from Gaza without return, and two, Israeli commitment to the establishment of the State of Palestine or to the existence or the State of Palestine.
Mr. Raz, do you think we can get there?
It's not that easy, but we must do that. First, I think we have to reach ceasefire, immediate ceasefire, which says, not that different, but which says releasing of all hostages, releasing of the agreed upon number of prisoners and agreed upon names of prisoners, and ending the war. Ending the war, of course, include withdrawal from Gaza. And then, of course, we have to think about rebuilding Gaza, and we have to think about reaching peace agreement between Israel and Palestine, because we cannot go again and again and again to wars. It doesn't help anybody. Yes, everybody has to secure himself, of course, and to secure rights for everybody who live there, be it Palestinians or Israelis. And the way to do that, from my opinion, is two-state solution.
And can I ask, staying with you, Mr. Raz, like one year of war after the heinous Hamas attacks, what's the mood in Israel?
The mood is very difficult. If you ask the Israelis, they are aware to the suffer of themselves. They are not that aware, and they don't that care about suffer of the Palestinians. And the Israelis suffer. First, there is huge solidarity with the hostages and with their families. People are having this yellow ribbon like me, and we all want to see them back immediately. We are talking about 1-year-old child and 86 years old person. I know personally few of the hostages, members in my party, few of them. People are shocked, and the first reaction is, okay, we have nobody to talk to, we have no partner, how can we achieve peace after such atrocities that we saw in October 7?
Okay, and so, Mr. Al-Qudra, it feels like you're talking about the Arab government and a potential Arab presence in Gaza afterwards. Some people are saying that the Palestinian issue is considered by some Arab governments as a burden. Do you think that there's a lack of solidarity from some of the Arab governments?
Yeah, maybe partly, but I don't think this is the main problem. The main problem, I think, to be frank with you, is the absence of a responsible Palestinian leadership, because the presence of such leadership is a precondition for building a Palestinian position around which you build an Arab position, around which you build an international position. And unfortunately, this is not the case right now. So, yeah, maybe you have a problem here, you have a problem there, but to tackle the situation with some kind of priority, you have to start with the internal Palestinian situation.
And what can happen to change that internal Palestinian situation? What's the role of Fatah in that?
Well, first of all, if you have elections, of course, the elections is the panacea for all the ills of the Palestinian political system. But unfortunately, these guys are not going to allow elections to happen, to take place. So we have to look into other situation. If one of the proposals we put on the table with regard to solving the situation in Gaza is implemented, that also can be a way forward, because with the governmental structure, you might then start a situation of changing the authority. If not, then you have to look into other things. And by the way, here I think that the problem is not the people in general. The problem is probably the intellectuals and the elite. And the intellectual and the elite needs to learn not giving a priority to their interests, to their priorities, to give more attention to the national patriotic things and the necessity of changing the Palestinian leadership. Now, of course, nobody is expecting heroes. Nobody would ask anybody that is keen to protect his own or his family or, salaries and things like that. That's fine. But, bottom line is to keep quiet. Don't say the opposite. Don't support the current Palestinian situation that is corrupt, that needs to be changed.
And is that a similar view from Israel? Or do Israelis think about the Palestinian Authority at all?
Or the Israeli government.
Yeah, indeed.
Vis-a-vis the Israeli government, the Israelis are totally divided. I think if you talk to the Israelis, half of them think that the Israeli government and Prime Minister Netanyahu is the worst thing that happened to Israel and the Jewish people ever. And if you ask the other half, they fully support the government and the Prime Minister. Maybe it's not half and half, but it is very close to that. Vis-a-vis the Palestinian Authority, unfortunately, majority of Israelis think that the Palestinian Authority is weak. Think that Hamas is leading the Palestinian people, and think that there is no use to talk or to strengthen the Palestinian Authority in this situation.
Obviously, violence.
But listen, let me say something, because the existence of two governments or two powers or two entities, one in Gaza and one in Ramallah, was promoted by this Israeli government and the previous governments by Mr. Netanyahu, basically. So that's one. They are responsible for the division and for nourishing Hamas somehow to the point of bringing some bags of money, cash money, inside Gaza to help them. That's one. Two, even Abbas, even this Palestinian Authority is there, I would argue, thanks to the support, some kind of support by Mr. Netanyahu as well, because he wants somebody that plays the role of Quisling, somebody that can help them. So you have two centers of powers and you support one or support the other, support the two of them to ensure that this division will remain.
Okay. Can we maybe talk about public opinion a bit and how violence influences that? Because obviously once a war starts, even in the UK, once the Iraq war had started, people that were against it were suddenly supportive. And so obviously with the attack that happened on October 7th and all of the heinous things that are happening in Gaza now, is that hardening hearts within the Palestinian community, within the Israeli community? Is it making it harder to move towards reconciliation?
Well, of course, the mood normally when there is war is to rally around the flag, right? I mean, there is no doubt about that. Nevertheless, I think we should, at least leaders should start thinking of the day after, of what's next. When the public starts seeing that this road is not going to achieve what they want to achieve, that this euphoria, okay, can continue for a while, but then people will come back from the sky to the ground and they will start looking around and trying to find a solution. So we need to talk about the solution. We need to present ideas. We need to take positions very clearly in a brave way without fearing public opinions, because what we say now may be not about today, but it's about tomorrow for sure. We need to change the direction. We need to learn how to live together and how to move forward.
Are we further away from peace from the Israeli side because of everything that's happening, or not?
I fully agree with my colleague Dr. Dr. Nasser what he said, because actually right now people feel they are in a war, a lot of hatred, a lot of patriotism, and we will show them, and we are going to win.
Yeah.
But what is this victory in the end of the day? It takes time until people start to understand that real victory is if you have dignity, security to you and to all the people.
Yeah.
And I think that during history, I saw nations, and I always give this example of UK, of the million who are going out to demonstrate against the war, and the day after, maybe not day after, but the war start, and then majority support, and this was a war far away in Iraq. And for Israelis and Palestinians, the war is in their homes.
Yeah.
They know people who were killed. They know hostages. They know prisoners. They know people who were uprooted from their homes. So the war is very close. But in the end of the day, those people in Palestine who supported the atrocities of Hamas in October 7, they say that they didn't gain anything out of that. And those people in Israel who support the war, they say, okay, at the end of the day, maybe you killed 10 Palestinians, but Israelis are being killed too. Yes, maybe you killed 40,000 Palestinians, but 2,000 Israelis were killed too. So what do you gain out of that? Nothing, not security, not economy, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very important point. I think at some point, the population will start realizing that we need to change course. We need to have different approach, because this is not working. Can't work.
You don't think that there's more people that would support Hamas now than before?
No, I don't think so. If you look at the Gaza Strip, that's definitely not true.
No, okay.
No, maybe the further you go, maybe the support would increase. West Bank is more than Gaza, and Jordan is more than the West Bank, and so on and so forth. But in general, you have to present an alternative. Nowadays, it's not fair to ask somebody, do you support this or do you support that? Because they have no alternative. If you present them with alternative, especially one that guarantees them better lives for them and their children, they will go for it. But provide something, give them an alternative, make them able to choose. That is very essential.
Okay. It's difficult to look around the world for a comparable scenario, but obviously people point to the reconciliation process that's happened in South Africa and Rwanda. You know, what has to happen for Israelis to see Palestinians as neighbors now?
I think it has to be a process. I mean, if you see extreme Palestinians, if Israelis see extreme Palestinians, they become more extreme, and then the Palestinians see Israelis become more extreme, and they become more extreme. You have to do the opposite. You have to show humanity. You have to help each other. You have to bring structures together. And if Israelis see that, for example, majority of Palestinians support 2 states in 67 borders, then more Israelis are going to be moderate. And then Palestinians might see that Israeli settlers are not stop settling or whatever, or at least stop immediate violence. You need to build it, and you need leaders. Because, for example, my colleague, Dr. Nasser, had a kind of an agreement, can I call it? Initiative for an agreement?
It's only a proposal. It's not
proposal for an agreement with Prime Minister Olmert. If, former Prime Minister, if Prime Minister, Israeli Prime Minister and Palestinian President come with such a proposal, then people see hope. Then many of them are going to support. I believe even majority. Of course, we still are going to have the extreme people in both sides who are going to oppose. But you need to give hope to the people who believe that, okay, many people in Israel say, I want peace with the Palestinians, but they don't want. And many people in Palestine say, we want peace with Israel, but Israel doesn't want.
Okay, listen, I just want to refer to the point, because this is also correct one. It's important that any initiative comes from people in powers. And this is precisely why we did not call what we presented an initiative or a plan. We called it only a proposal.
Yeah.
This is a joint proposal because we believe that, as I said earlier, leaders have to raise their voice and say what's happening is wrong, and there should be a different road, a road of coexistence, reconciliation, living together, two states, side by side, etc., etc.
Okay, very good. This is the proposal you put out in Le Monde, of the former Israeli
Yes,
Prime
it was
Minister.
published in
2
Washington
weeks ago.
Post, Le Monde, Le Pays, many newspapers.
Yeah,
yes.
we'll put it on screen. So everyone's experiencing this in their own societies. Obviously, we're here in Brussels, and we're the European Union, made up of 27 members. It feels like the subject of the situation in the Middle East is a huge issue in domestic politics now. And I think it's really interesting that we're both here with an opportunity to speak to each other. Do you have the opportunity to speak to many people in Israel about their views on it? Obviously, you have this open line to the former Prime Minister.
Actually, I worked as a foreign minister before that as a representative of the UN and things like that. But of course, I do understand realities.
Yeah.
I do understand facts on the ground, and that you need to deal with these realities to provide better future for your people. And that's what we are trying. That's what we are trying to do. Again, one has to understand that this should come from peoples in power, not from anyone.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the EU. I have to tell you very frankly that the Palestinian side, at least the Arab sides, were expecting more from the European Union, from Europeans generally, in terms of respect for international law, for international humanitarian law, for rule-based world, which was not the case. You know, there is this problem that maybe the Israeli government, the current Israeli government, does or has the feeling to do whatever it wants without any accountability.
Yeah.
And that is something we need to take care of, because for everybody, they should understand that there is law and the law apply, and there shouldn't be any immunity for anybody. Everybody has to be held accountable.
Do you think Netanyahu's running into this now? Because obviously he's getting to Lebanon, he's threatening the lives of Italian and Irish UN peacekeepers. Is that a red line too far, do you think, for the international community?
I don't know what is a red line too far for the international community. I'm not an expert for that, and I'm not. I hope this issue in Lebanon is not going to go on. I mean, of course, I'm sure Netanyahu doesn't want to hit the UNIFIL, but I don't know what is the international community. You know, has laws without police, without any way to make the law happen.
Well, there are peacekeepers, and
yeah, but those peacekeepers were in Lebanon. They did not keep the peace when Hezbollah was there, and they cannot keep the peace when Israel is there. So yes, they have a lot of good intentions, but it didn't help. No, not Israel, neither Hezbollah, or neither the Lebanese.
You see, again, I respect my friend and I respect his opinions, but this is, I think, the wrong approach, because it's not up to the Israelis to decide what's right and what's wrong. There are international institutions, there are international instruments, there are international troops that they have to be respected in all circumstances, even if I don't like it. It can't be if I like it, fine. If I don't like it, I can take measures. It can't be. This is exactly the kind of situation that we are trying to avoid.
it seems like with important exceptions, the UN has taken a clear stance, or has voted consistently on resolutions to end the conflict, but there's obviously abstentions and votes against from powerful countries like the USA.
Listen, today I was reading that there has been some 80 times, around 80 vetoes by the United States on resolutions, draft resolutions that have to do with the conflict generally, not only the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, but also some Arab aspects as well. So you are talking about unprecedented number of vetoes. And by the way, the Charter of the United Nations requires that this does not happen. It says clearly that members who are party to a conflict should abstain from voting. And even this small, limitations on the power of veto is not being respected. It's not being respected. It should not happen this way. Now, of course, General Assembly voted, and this is democracy. And the United Nations, by the way, like the Arab League, like any other organization, like the EU, it is the sum of members.
It's parts, yeah.
It's not something absolute or something in the air. So at the end of the day, if I am upset with the United Nations, it means I'm upset with the members of the United Nations.
Yeah. Well,
And I shouldn't direct that against the SG, for instance, Secretary General of the United Nations.
do you feel like things are slowly changing? You mentioned that you were disappointed with the EU response, and it seems that the EU, it's difficult for the EU to speak with one voice on foreign policy because it's a member state competence, but do you feel like things are starting to change? Spain, for example, has recognized Palestine, the ambassador
It is changing, but it's not only that. I mean, it's also the influence of the United States, and it is also maybe the choice that we better out of this. Why we should get involved into this and face some difficulties. So it's not only the fringes and the positions of a minority government that block things. It's more complicated than that. But to put some positive aspect on this, yes, I see things changing. And one of the reasons, by the way, it is changing is precisely the fact that Mr. Netanyahu has gone too far.
I think that, during a war, we talked about that earlier, and my friend mentioned people go around to the flag and people support their side and they ignore the suffer of the other side. And in the same way, like I'm Palestinian, I see myself, and I'm Israeli, I see myself. They see the international community as one-sided. So while I hear and understand the feeling of my friend Dr. Nasser about the international community and about Europe not doing, we have the same feelings in Israel, but in the opposite side. I understand that it is very difficult to UN and to Europe to take resolutions and to take decisions. And I agree that all has to be according to the international law. I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
We have no disagreement here. I hope that we can do that soon, to agree upon things that following the international law, that both sides will have their independence and right to self-determination, and all the citizens will have their personal rights, human rights.
So we're running out of time. Is there anything you want to ask across, to each other, to each other's societies? Is there anything?
We are not that different. So maybe that is why there was some lack of, the real fighting, which is not bad, because we are largely in agreement.
I'm not trying to make you fight.
No,
but,
we are largely in agreement.
But exactly, and I think, I think we'll wrap up the podcast now, but just to say thank you so much for participating. We've discussed a lot of things, but one of the overriding things is that it's absolutely clear is that Israel is not Netanyahu, and that Palestine is not Hamas, and that there are people like yourselves working for peace and a two-state solution.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I want to say that Palestine is not Dr. Kidwa and Israel is not Mossi Raz. So we have to approach our people, not only our leaders, but I fully agree that we need leadership to do that.
Great. Well, hopefully we move towards Palestine being more you and Israel being more you. Thank you so much.
See you soon.
Thank you for listening.